Good evening, everyone. This is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from nighttime, not so sunny Colorado, but it's still warm, always sunny somewhere. I just got done looking through Camille Rosso's book, The Infinite Machine, which is the first of several biographies coming out on the history of Ethereum. And it's a surreal experience. If you ever experience it, very few people do go through something and it turn out to be in a book, and to read about events that you lived. Like I read the Red Wedding chapter, which had to deal with my departure from Ethereum, and several other chapters. And it's been 7 years, and it still is a hell of a thing. I joined that project, and I was in my mid-20s, very ambitious, very optimistic, and really excited to do something interesting in cryptocurrency space. And when you're part of something like Ethereum, you just realize that there's something special there, that the idea has legs, and it's going to take off, and it's going to change some things, and it's going to create something that's going to affect a large group of people. And the Miami chapter in that book really does a good job of capturing that sense of excitement. And the problem is that no one comes into that game perfect, and no one comes into that game with the skill sets that they need to really rise to the occasion. You just all do your best, as Vitalik did and I did. And it ended up only being about 6 months of my life. And after I was gone in June of 2014, I didn't really think the project was going to succeed. I felt that because of the politics, the way that they did things, the character assassination, this other stuff, the infighting would result in the destruction of the project and the squandering of all the project money. Much to my surprise, Ethereum somehow managed to get through all of that, probably due to Vitalik being a very strong leader and having the character and the discipline to get through it, and become a truly meaningful project to our entire industry and in space. You see, the real growth of Charles Hoskinson, though, occurred after Ethereum. Being a CEO of a company for year after year after year, and just going through the dogged minutia of that job, the many hard days and things I've had to endure through it, and the constant criticism that you endure in this industry, where people go beyond saying you're wrong to saying you're a criminal, you're a horrible human being. The utter lack of empathy in this industry, where you're judged by your worst days, and that's assumed to be the standard. It's something that truly does build character, and the hardest part is trying to maintain a lack of cynicism, trying to maintain optimism despite all of that. Recently we had a tussle on Twitter where somebody from China decided to imply that our project was involved with a bunch of MLM Ponzi scams in Western China, and that the only reason our price had gone up was because of that. These are blatantly untrue and unfair allegations, and any reasonable thinking person would realize how unfair and untrue they are. And if I have the audacity to defend my community, my project, the integrity of our system, then it leads to a Twitter mob calling me an egomaniac. And it's a difficult situation to be in, where you can be criticized but can't reply to the criticism. You can't defend yourself, especially against unfair allegations. And we live in a space where people are very tribal, and they don't really like anyone who's not in their tribe, and don't care to listen or understand what they're doing. The magic of the company that I created and the people built is that we did things very differently. We were a bit ahead of our time. We thought carefully about things like peer review, and we thought carefully about how to build a great science engine. We did things a little differently on the development side, and we made a lot of mistakes along the way. We were too ambitious. We tried to do too many things at the same time. We used languages that were a bit too arcane, and we paid a terrible price for that. But you know what? We never gave up. The story that hasn't been told, and it should be told one day, is how a group of people got together and they had the resilience necessary to go try to do some of the hardest things that have ever been done in the history of not only this industry, but in software development. And they succeeded for the most part. It's not an easy thing to say that we're just going to invent new science and then formalize that science and then put it into consumer products and release it to people all across the world while everybody's watching, criticizing, and trying to steal your money and break it. And if you make any mistakes at all, that becomes the only story and all the successes are forgotten. And our team did that. And I'm eternally grateful for their ability to do that and continuation of doing that. It's not an easy thing to evaluate 10 years worth of history in our space and say certain parts of it is wrong, even things that people hold to be right, and have a difference of opinion and have to justify that difference of opinion and build a community around it and explain the nuances and details, especially when they're incredibly technical. I spent more than 5 years of my life working on that. 5 years, that's a long time, 10 times longer than when I was at Ethereum. And for the most part, Ethereum is over for me. I haven't given it much thought. You know, it is what it is. There's clearly people in that community who really hate me and don't think I'm anybody worth anybody's time. They think I'm a bad actor, and they clearly state their opinion on a daily basis about it or whenever asked. But you know what? I couldn't care less. I really don't. And now these books are coming out, and it's resurrecting those memories and that time, and it's a surreal experience in a certain respect. Good lessons to learn from it, but it's left me with a profound sense of gratitude because as a consequence of those events, I'm here today with you, my community, those who decided to go with the crazy ideas that we came up with together and invest in those ideas and build in those ideas. And you know what? We're all better for that. The space is better for that. It's better that there's Cardano and Ethereum instead of just Ethereum. And I think we have a lot to learn from each other, especially after the emotions recede a little bit. You know, the other thing is that the whole experience taught me how ephemeral everything is. We like to believe that things are permanent. Marriages, life, we all die. Everything comes to an end at some point. Even if you're a CEO one day, tomorrow you might not be. Even if you're the president, tomorrow you might not be. Everything comes to an end in its time. So early in life, if you have the misfortune or fortune of being fired or kicked around, it gives you the ability to get back up and know that tomorrow will be better. Dust yourself off, and you can still achieve great things if only you have the will to try. And boy, that's been a great lesson for me, and it's something that I've really treasured and taken to heart. And I have to tell you, my life today is better than anything I could have ever imagined it to be. I live in a beautiful place. I have beautiful friends and family. I get to do the things that I care to do. I've been to 52 countries. I've met heads of state. You know, I've had a chance to interact with everybody you could ever imagine. Just the other day, I was interacting with a world-famous AI researcher who wants to build on our platform. And I remember reading in Wired magazine about his Android that he constructed and using his framework, OpenCog. And then also, I remember years ago reading A New Kind of Science when I was studying mathematics, and the fact that the author of that book would come to our conference and speak. It's just a real experience. I remember taking a networking course and reading about the history of TCP/IP, and the textbook had a little panel with a picture of Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn in it, and to have Vint Cerf come to our conference. It's truly an experience that's one of a kind, and it happened as a direct result of the events of Ethereum. So I've come to know all of you because of the things that happened there. And for that, I am truly grateful. And I'm very grateful for what we've accomplished. In the coming days, Shelley's coming out, followed soon by Gauguin, and then we have this relentless experimentation of Voltaire. Every 6 to 8 weeks, some voting event is going to happen. Money's going to start moving. The DC will start flowing to you guys. And in short order, our ecosystem will start becoming more resilient, diverse, New thought leaders will materialize. All kinds of crazy debates will form. Strong leadership will materialize in places we don't expect to see it. And as a consequence, Cardano will become truly diverse and decentralized. And at some point, it'll become so diverse and decentralized, just like Ethereum, I'll probably fade away, either by choice or not by choice. It doesn't particularly matter. It always happens to founders. Even Bill Gates is no longer at Microsoft. But what leaves me with so much joy is the fact that what we have constructed is truly going to be around for a very long time. I don't know if Ethereum is going to be here forever. It may become something like Netscape or PayPal, and for its time, established something and brought a lot of people up and really proved out how the world ought to work. Or it might end up becoming something that's here for a long time. But I do know for a fact Cardano will be. What we have laid here, the community we've constructed here, is unlike anything I've ever seen in the cryptocurrency space. All of you matter, and all of you care just as much as I do, and the people at my company do, and at the foundation do, and the people at Emergo do. And all of you in your own way contribute in special ways. It can be as simple as sending recipes for how to cook venison jerky. It's as complicated as having a detailed opinion on how we need to modify our voting system so it's more effective. And if everybody contributes, then we'll all rise together. You know, the other reality is that we really have figured out how to do business within the developing world, and it is inevitable that deal after deal will bring millions of users from the developing world into Cardano. And Cardano will become the default platform for economic identity. That's my dream, that's my hope, and that's my belief. I strongly believe it. And if that occurs, we will achieve what I set out to do in that TED Talk in 2014 in Bermuda, where I said, we have two worlds, the banked world and the unbanked world, and it's about time we merge them and we have one. It was a pipe dream back then. And now, just 5 years later, I'm left with this extraordinary awe that we've found the secret sauce to get there, and get there with a movement. And regardless of how hard it is, how long it'll take, there's a certain degree of inevitability about that. So while it is hard to look at the past, especially looking at books like The Infinite Machine, because it does remind me of the worst of times, and it does remind me of how cruel and horrible people can be, or how misguided people can be in their criticism. It also reminds me of how far someone can rise after a fall. And we all rose together. So I suppose the great lesson to take from all of this is there's always a tomorrow. You overestimate what you can do in a year, but you always underestimate what you can do in 10. And I can't wait to spend the next 5 years and 5 years after that and 5 years after that with all of you, continuing what we started here and continuing to build what we started here. And I think our best days are ahead of us. I really honestly do. In any event, it's really been some amazing work. We probably could have picked a slightly easier road, though. Maybe written it in Scala and used Yella and other things like that. But we chose the hard road. And regardless of that, I think that alone has earned enough respect to keep us around for a while. So I just wanted to say that it's a surreal experience to read about yourself in a book and read about events that you lived. I remember some things a little differently, but that's always what happens with books. And some creative license was taken here and there. Some things were fair, some things were not so fair. And I guess there's 2 more coming out this year, so we'll see what everybody else has to say. But overall, all in all, pretty neutral, pretty fair, I suppose. And it was a good story, nonetheless. Let's make the book written about Cardano an even better one. And let's make that book worth 1,000. Thanks for listening. Y'all take care, and I'll talk to you soon.